All right. What's going on, everybody? My name is Eric Velasquez, and this is Alamo City Agenda. And we are here at Wild Barley Kitchen and Brewery on Broadway. I think it's 8403 Broadway. I should already know it by now. I know, shame on me. But please come down. Always want to encourage to support small business. Please come down, grab a bite to eat, grab a seat. You can come in here and have a seat and then engage as well. Mm-hmm. So right now we are here with Mr. Joel Solis, correct?
It's Joel Solis.
Joel Solis, all right. And so you are running for the San Antonio River Authority. And before we get into that, How was your weekend? Because we just had it's a beautiful Monday.
Yeah.
I don't know why people say Mondays are bad, but I think Mondays are great.
Mondays are great, and especially when it's cloudy, huh?
Yeah, right.
It's even a better day, so it's a little bit cooler.
Yeah.
The weekend was pretty jam-packed. I was up in Austin doing the Trip Fest. If
okay.
you ever been up there, it is a great place to be. Lots of faces in the news are there. A lot of folks from Texas politics are there as well, and national politics. Lots of interesting sessions there, so really enjoyable.
What are some anything you took away from that?
Yeah. The one thing I took back was the I want to say the secretary for the Biden administration's infrastructure investment fund, Mitch Landau, former mayor of New Orleans. Really incredible work that the administration is doing, and we're seeing it here in San Antonio as well. Especially with the San Antonio Westside Creek redevelopment. It's going to be really the largest urban ecosystem restoration in the nation. It's happening here. It's happening because of those funds. $75 million right now. There is some room for that budget to grow if it needs, but that is all coming from this administration. And it was really quite a change that Mitch was saying, is that not only are they looking to see all the good things that these development dollars do, making sure that they're shovel-ready projects. And thankfully, San Antonio River Authority had this as a shovel-ready project. And the administration snapped onto it rather quickly because of the historic way we've treated the West Side. And when the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers went through and they channelized all of our creeks, really created an unsightly monstrosity back in the day, and it still is unsightly, and it really helped to destroy the neighborhoods in the West Side. Folks really had a connection to the free-flowing creeks, the ponds, the fishing. Being able to go and actually gather food from the river. So it broke a neighborhood connection, and that's part of the criteria that they were looking at in granting those funds to help try and get us back to where we were before they channelized the creeks. And of course, you can't blame the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We lost a lot of lives, a lot of property damage from the floods back in the 20s and the 30s. And so it was a necessary thing to do. We had to mitigate flood disaster. And what they've now done is they've changed their approach to it. It was very engineering based.
Yeah.
Right? These were Army guys,
right.
men and women. And when they see a project, they engineer it to make it the most simple, quick way, least cost effective way to mitigate. And they did. They were very successful in what they've done.
Yeah.
And even today, the amount of water that flows through those creekways is the bar that they're going to have to meet when they do this ecosystem restoration. We're still going to be able to carry away just as much flood water as before.
Yeah.
But it's going to be crazy. The habitats they're going to create, the number of birds that will be able to fly through. We're already seeing it in the Mission Reach. They did a little bit of a investigation there. We had about a little over 60 different types of bird species flying through. But now it's over 200 bird species that are flying through San Antonio, stopping on our creeks and rivers, taking the time to eat, to nest, and then move along in their migratory pattern. So we'll see them twice a year now, and hopefully we'll see an increase of different types of bird species coming through the San Antonio River Basin.
how do you feel with Sarah taking care of the creeks and rivers, and the whole thing that's going on with the San Antonio River and Brackenridge Park with the trees that they're wanting to remove? Do you think that's not helping the situation with natural habitats and wildlife?
Well, that's a good, very good question, Eric. I did live in the River Road area for a short time. That's actually where I purchased my very first home. And I purchased it from Blanquita Cullen. I don't know if you know Blanquita. She was on the news for quite a bit. Mm-hmm. She left to join the George Bush Senior, actually George Bush Jr. administration up in Washington, D.C. And so she sold the house. We got in at $80,000. It was a 2-bedroom home, very old, but it was exciting to be there in the San Antonio River area. Between McAllister Freeway and Brackenridge Park, that piece of the river has been pretty much untouched. So it's sort of in the wild. We had our first son there, and so we used to go down and explore through the creek, walk up and down both sides, listen to the waterfall there. And we used to have the horse stables. That's how far back it goes. We had them right there in the park. But we also had the zoo right up the way. And you got to hear all of the wild animals. The lions go off and the monkeys go off. It was pretty amazing. And we would go walk up into the Brackenridge Park area. I still remember the days when you could cross over the bridge and go from the park into the zoo side. We used to have the trolley car ride going from the zoo to the sunken gardens, and of course we had the miniature train. Mm-hmm. Back in that day, the biggest issue was extending the Riverwalk reach into into our neighborhood, and the residents. We were there, part of the neighborhood associations there for River Road. They were adamantly opposed extending the river. They thought it was going to destroy not only the river, but bring so many people into the neighborhoods that it was going to lessen property values. And I think the biggest sin of all was, to get more word out that here is a very unique pocket of San Antonio that provides a great quality of life. You're kind of nestled in between the highway and the Brackenridge Park in the golf course, and you had a free-flowing river on one side of it. Mm. And a park that, after every rain, we would go out there and search for arrowheads, and you can still find arrowheads today. My daughter just found one the other day. So if you look back at Sarah's history, I've got to say they are a top-notch organization. They have a fantastic leadership and staff, professional staff there that are very committed to making sure that we have a balance, not only eco-wise, but to make sure that we are helping restore and bring back nature into the area, but also look at recreation. And the recreation is a big part of it. We need to open up and make greater use of the recreational use of our creeks and river. And like I said, I think they've done an excellent job. That review committee come through and audit them. Hold on. This is their 10-year review.
Hold on. Sorry. Okay. The video feed cut out for a second. Sorry about that. Yeah, go. You're good.
So we're okay? Yeah, the Sunset Review, not a bad report that came from them. There's a couple things that you need to look at, some recommendations, some best practices, all of which this leadership has said they're going to take on, and they're already working to address those issues in our. One of them was have greater transparency. San Antonio River Authority is a taxing authority. They just reset the rate for property tax. In fact, they lowered it, in case y'all were wondering, give that one away. And so I'm making sure that the monies are well spent. And like I said, they've done a fantastic job. The work and the work opportunities that they provide San Antonio, they are a fantastic employer. So anyone looking for work, be sure to give the San Antonio River Authority a look at, because it is a very, very good organization to be with. I'm glad that I'm hopefully going to be associated with them very shortly.
Yeah, definitely. So what's your background experience in this type of field? Like, if you want to kind of give a quick reference of what San Antonio River Authority does, because I'm sure 90% of the people in San Antonio don't know what the San Antonio River Authority even is.
Yeah.
So can you kind of give a real quick, obviously I know you said some stuff already, but just real quick of like a couple of points.
You know, they are the environmental stewards for the San Antonio River Basin. And the basin, if you think about the concept of a basin, it's where all the waters will flow into and collect in one way towards the Gulf of Mexico. They're responsible for ensuring that we mitigate the possibility of floods and the loss of property and damage. And so that is their number one job is flood mitigation. They're also into sanitation. They run 5 sanitary facilities here in Bexar County. And that's another big aspect of what they do. And to get an idea of the scope of the San Antonio River Authority, you know, they start here in San Antonio, Bexar County, and they go all the way down to Goliad. And that's the full length of the San Antonio River that they have authority over.
Oh, wow. That's huge.
It's huge. They don't have that big of a budget. I think about $370 million a year. That's nothing compared to San Antonio's budget of $3.7 billion. So it's the starving child. What is concerned.
I would love $370 million. You know, and then also
we got to take care of our sewage. Man.
What do you plan to do to help make sure that budget and money is spent wisely? Because it is taxpayer money. Yeah. So what are your plans to make sure that not just you, but the board is responsible with that money?
Well, everyone, you know, when they sign up to do this, we take a note to make sure that we act in accordance with the law. But, you know, my lifelong experience, you know, having grown up in San Antonio, being a resident, being tied to the San Antonio River rather closely, and graduating, you know, from St. Mary's University as electrical engineer, and then working for the U.S. electrical industry, doing product safety and of course, exports for our U.S. manufacturers. Actually ran a 501c6 nonprofit called Canina. We were looking to reduce the complexity of designing products for multiple markets. And of course, the U.S. electrical system follows pretty much through the Americas. We're in North America, Central America, most of South America, and in the Caribbean. So big market for San Antonio, U.S. electrical products. I ran my own board, being the secretary of Canina. That was being pretty much the leader of Canina for a good 12 years, and had a board that was comprised of members from both U.S., Mexico, and Canada. We were very effective for the U.S. electrical industry. I think electrical industry is probably the only one industry that maintained a positive trade surplus, which is good news, which means that we're bringing more money into this country than the money that's leaving the country. I think those experiences, and of course my time in Washington, D.C., working with the trade association, working with an industry trade association, meant that I was very close to regulatory agencies. Did the alphabet soup of regulatory agencies, you know, the FCC, U.S. Coast Guard, MSHA, FDA, medical devices, nuclear. We were there as well with electrical products that you have to provide power to nuclear facilities. And worked very closely with our ambassadors that were in the Americas and our trade standard attaches. And of course, every time we went into a country, we were meeting with our counterparts there as well, meeting with our regulatory agencies there and explain to them what the problems that we were experiencing as the U.S. Or North American trade, and try to get them to be cognizant of the issues and to change their positions in order to allow U.S. products to continue to move into those countries. So I think that experience, being able to work with very broad interests, and of course being held responsible, not by just my board, but by the electrical industry, which is almost 450 members. All of them have diverse interests. You can't satisfy everyone. You're going to take a couple of elbows into the ribs. But at the end of the day, they understand and are committed to the work that we were doing to expand markets and reduce the complexity that they kept me on board until I retired.
Nice.
So I think I'll continue to do that with the San Antonio River Authority.
All right. You think? Not just like. So what was your motivation to say, you know what, I am going to put my name on the ballot? Because putting your name on the ballot is not an easy feat to begin with, but what was that motivation to just say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and put my hat in the ring? Was it just a timing thing? Was it something you thought of, for a while, or?
It was something we thought of for a while. My wife was civil service, Air Force, and we took a move. She was at Brooks, and over at Randolph, we took a move to the Pentagon. She took the move to the Pentagon. That's how I got involved with Washington, D.C. and worked for the industry, and really opened up a whole new world that I didn't know existed. On the regulatory side, the concerns of stakeholder groups, and being able to work and navigate that. What really made it really pertinent for us, what really came home is that, being in Washington, D.C., we actually experienced both 9/11 and January 6th. 9/11 on, from my wife's side, being the civilian side of the military, helped get us to war and successfully fight enemies abroad. We had to bring the country back, get it ready to go to war. And then following January 6th, that was really the worst incident that's ever happened to us on our territory, to have an insurrection at the Capitol, and to hear that so many had come from Texas and were there, not only desecrating the grounds of the Capitol, but going inside our house and desecrating the house. And the lack of response, being a native Washingtonian, living there for so long, you knew what the response should have been, did not see it, and you left wondering if there was ever going to be any accountability for what had happened there. And so our thought was that it was time to retire, come back to San Antonio, and try to change the political discourse that is going, that made January 6th possible. And of course, the threats continue on from that. So that was my awakening moment. And so trying to get into politics here and trying to make a difference. I ran for city council, District 10. I was against a field of 7 last name last name on the ballot. Came in second. And so there was folks that made a positive decision to support me in running for the candidacy. And so what I've decided now is to continue look for other avenues to support San Antonio, to get back to the public good. And the San Antonio River Authority Board, I was surprised to hear that we had 2 members at large. And the reason why it came out as a surprise is because the Texas legislature decided to change the term, the length of term for members at large, from 6 years to 4 years. And they decided to run it in this November, coming the 7th. I'll be the 4th name on that ballot, so please look for me. And I put my name in the ring for it.
Yeah.
So I think I can help make a change there.
That's awesome. Do you have social media?
I have a website. It's just www.joelsolis.org, all one word.
Okay. So with social media, and the reason why I ask this is, how important is it for you to reach out to the public itself? Since a lot of people use social media, how are you going to engage the public, especially engage youth, to be excited to make sure they're being knowledgeable or gain wisdom on the things that are on the ballot, like this position. Because a lot of people don't know it either. But like not having like a social media, do you think you will change that here in the future? Because try to reach other people demographics.
I can tell you, I know social media, LinkedIn, Facebook. I've got a YouTube channel. I don't think it's that effective in reaching the youth, unless maybe you're talking about TikTok, and that might be the place to go with these viral, silly 30-second video clips. That's not enough depth to communicate to anyone what the issues and what the impacts are going to be. I think what we're having a huge problem with is that we're coming out of the pandemic. Everyone is now just starting to get out of being cloistered up in homes. And we need to get back to old-fashioned politicking. Neighbors getting out and talking to their neighbors and telling them about the issues and letting them know that it's a matter of concern to them, and try to get them to go out and vote one way or the other, at least make a position on what they think should be done. It's really quite a letdown with the youth vote. Just to look at this last election, so much was on the line. Abortion access, whether abortion is health care for women or not, whether you were going to deny that, and whether you were going to, try to criminalize women trying to seek medical services. They didn't show up for that. And so it's not going to be social media. It didn't do a lot for Beto. It certainly didn't push him over the line winning. And so we need to look at that hard and try to figure out what it is going to take to bring the youth back. I know that there are a lot of efforts to try and get them to register to vote. In Texas is probably the hardest place to get anyone to register. You have to affirmatively fill out a form and send it in. But it's getting to those youth to actually register. It's very difficult to get into the schools. It's difficult to get them in while they're in college. It's difficult to get polling locations set up near enough for them to vote. And it's also difficult to say where they're a residence of. If they're studying away from home and from one county into a different county, San Antonio, we're a magnet with all of our universities here. But most of those students have to go back home to vote. That we don't allow absentee voting unless you're over 62. We've made it so difficult for the youth that I think they just tuned out and dropped out. They're not listening to what's going on and don't feel that they can make a change. And that's far from the actual reality.
Well, I think it's not just the youth, but it's a lot of people. A lot of people. I mean, you look back, especially demographic of lower income or even middle income. Like a lot of people's votes, they feel like it doesn't matter. So there's a big issue there. Because politicians usually fail them a lot of times because they promise things and never get stuff accomplished. So, but that's a whole other story.
Well, let me just add to that.
Yeah.
If you think you can't get anything done, you think your vote doesn't matter, your voice doesn't count, call your congressman or senator, especially here in Texas. They track, they listen, just make your voice heard. And in the Texas House, and I've heard this from several of the legislators, that it depends on how many people are in the viewing seats, that will sway politicians on how they vote. So yes, showing up, being present, being counted, letting know folks that you care, that changes minds. The other thing that's going on now, I know there is a report card now that's been issued that's looking at both Republicans and Democrats, giving you their voting record to see how they've voted this last legislative session. And we only hold the legislative session every 2 years, so it's easy to tune it out because and it's only for 144 days or something. It's a really short period of time, and they have so much pent up draft legislation that they're trying to push through at each of these cycles, 2-year cycles. It is mind numbing to try and track and follow it. It's just insane. Right. So it has to be a team effort. Groups are actually forming teams to look at the legislation and start to categorize them, see how folks are voting and getting those records out for you to see. If you're discussing the way things are going, get engaged. You can change it.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of like partnerships and stuff like that, how do you plan on building partnerships within SARA with nonprofits or other organizations that are kind of have the same mindset that SARA has?
Yeah. It really is a good question, and it really goes back to the history of San Antonio and SARA. Judge Nelson Wolf, wrote several really good books on how politics run in San Antonio. And it is about coalitions. If you want to make big change, the bigger the coalition you have to pull together to bring that about. And it's not getting it done in a quarter. It's not getting it done in a year. The 75 million going for the largest ecosystem restoration project in Westside Creeks, that took over 15 years. This is a long ball game. You have to be in it and know that it's going to take a bit of work to get down to the very end.
Yeah. So, but like for you, what do you want to start implementing if you do get in? What organizations would you like to partner with? Or do you have any in mind?
Well, thinking about Nelson Wolf, when we did the Mission Reach and the Riverwalk extension, the San Antonio River Authority, created its own foundation, San Antonio River Foundation. It's now a separate entity, but it's there to support the mission of the San Antonio River Authority. When we're talking tax dollars, we're looking at doing, the shovel-ready work that needs to be done, either to mitigate flooding or to make sure that we have the sanitation facilities that they can handle the capacity. And we're growing to make sure that we're ready to accommodate all the population that's coming to Texas, since we're a growing state. And so there's nothing you could do through the San Antonio River Authority to spruce up these projects. And so they created the San Antonio River Foundation. They go out and they raise funds. My most favorite project that they've took on was the flying fish underneath the Jones Street Bridge that lights up every night. Those things add to the character and the ambiance of San Antonio and its nightlife. Without them, we would not have anything like that. And it wouldn't help with develop the character of San Antonio. So I certainly see partnering up with organizations like the San Antonio River Foundation, other like-minded organizations, would be great. And I would like to see more of that. But
Gotcha.
Each of them take staff and they require money, and we want most of that money to go into the projects itself.
Right. Yeah, definitely. What's your experience with policy development and your approach to ensure SARA's compliance with those policies?
Yeah. No, that's a good question. So they did take a little ding. If you ever been through an audit, I've been through one very painful one. I was here in San Antonio. I was working for KCI, actually in their New Tech division, their wound care division, and we had FDA come in. Unlike other audits, you're getting audited to like an ISO 9001 quality management system audit, and they never give you the fear of God, like FDA, where that they can lock the doors and keep you out of the facility. And so when you get recommendations from someone like that, you take those very to heart and you internalize it and you address it the next time around, so the audit goes a little bit smoother. and this was just a recommendation, is that they needed to provide greater transparency on how they come up with the tax rate. That they just finished that, I think just last week, they had the board meeting. I was there for that. Absolutely well-run committee meeting. The chair did a superb job there. They actually are lowering the tax rate down to 0.018 cents per $100 property valuation. It's a very good news there. So we're looking at how to provide greater transparency and get more public involvement, both on the setting the tax rate as well as the projects that the San Antonio River Authority is undertaking. It's time to provide more greater transparency what those projects are. The fishermen in the group will want to hear about what we're doing with mussels and restocking of fish, because we certainly want to encourage that kind of recreation. But there are a lot of projects that they have, and just a matter of taking the time to communicate those out and actually work on the messaging, making sure that the messaging is right, so that it's readily received. It's not something that people would ignore.
Yeah.
So that's something that the board has taken on, and it's something that the management, the senior leadership there at Sarah has taken on, and I think they're doing pretty well. I'm looking forward to seeing the progress and helping them along that pathway. I learned from my work with the industry. You had to have transparency. You had to have truthfulness. If they've ever thought that you were not being honest and sincere, that was it. You didn't last. Honestly, you get fired the next day. You're gone. So that's a lesson I've learned, and it's one that still sits with me. So I get in trouble for not holding my cards close to the vest.
Yeah,
when I talk about those things. So
yeah, definitely. And again, if anybody has a question, feel free to put it here in the comments. I will go ahead and read. Sarah's budget, it's crucial, right? So, what are your what's your experiences with handling like a big budget like that?
Well, it's a bigger budget than what I've dealt with before. 300, I think 78 million. But I did run a budget for a nonprofit legal entity. And it was a thing that we talked about at every board meeting. We brought out the budget, see what we were doing. Just like any other legal entity in a business, you cannot go negative. There's no way for us to borrow monies. And in fact, the way you take over an association or nonprofit is to take over the board. You don't buy it out. So very key to make sure that we have a budget set up and that we have a strategic plan that lays out exactly what we're going to do with that money for the year, and that we set timelines and that we execute to those timelines. The other part of the budget is actually making sure that we have the accounting systems in place, that we do the banking the appropriate way. When I got into Canina, we had to set up a U.S. bank account. We had set it up actually in Canada to begin with, but we were operating on U.S. dollar, not the Canadian loonie. So we decided it's time to move it into the States. So getting the account set up, not an easy thing to do. Then getting a merchant account set up so that we could take monies online and actually be able to accept monies for our annual events. And also doing the corporate compliance part of it, making sure that we had a legal agent in the state that we were operating, which was Virginia at the time. And of course, a legal agent where we were incorporated, which was in Delaware. And making sure that we had the insurance for the officers in case there was any issues of unfair dealing or any accusations of that we had the ability to cover those costs as well. So you start thinking about all the different areas that you're involved with the budget.
Right.
And so I think I have all of that, the base knowledge to do it. It's just got to scale it up by a decimal
just
point.
a little bit. Yeah, just a little bit. What's your vision for the river? It's like for the rivers. Yeah. Like what's your vision to you would like to put your hand in and contribute to? What's that look like?
Yeah, that's actually a great question and one I've given a lot of thought. I really think that the direction we're on is a really good direction. There has to be a balance, mitigating flood, of course, but also increasing the recreational use. And of course, being able to support the commercialization around our river and creeks and streams. And also, support the growth in population that's occurring and making sure that we're able to accommodate it appropriately so that we don't get into trouble. And be a little forward-looking now. This year we've experienced probably the most extreme temperatures that we've had. This is the tannest I've been ever in my life this year. Thank you, San Antonio. That we making sure that we're going to be accounting for unforeseen, especially with waterfall. That can become catastrophic when we get a lot of water dropping down on us. We know we got El Nino going through this year. We're hoping we're going to get rainfall out of that. We need to resupply and recharge our aquifer and our streams and creeks. Hopefully that will happen. But we need to make sure that we're ready for, almost you can throw away the 100-year past history handbook to say this is where we set that low bar. Myself being from conforming assessment, we always want to say safe is safe. What is that low bar? We need to figure out what that low bar is going to be when we experience these extreme amounts of rain that are happening across the country. So I hope to see a balance, of recreation, flood control, supporting commercialization, supporting population growth, but also making sure that we're not climate deniers, that we factor that into our planning going forward.
Okay, nice. In the realm of politics, which, again, I know this office doesn't deal too much exactly with politics, like city council and all that, but
that is zero.
Right. But with conflicts of interest, how do you plan to navigate that, whether it's personal or political? Like, how will you handle those specific engagements if it comes across your way?
Well, wow. We do have a requirement to say if we're in a conflict of interest. I can tell you that my economic status is not such that I have to worry too much about the financial side. I am retired, living on a fixed income. And so I do have a 401k. I do have investments, but they're like a 401k. There's probably 100 different stocks that are there. Not big holdings. But when those conflicts do arise, to recognize it and raise your hand and say that you have to abstain from a vote if that was to occur. I really don't see that ever happening. The politics side, I guess being new to San Antonio River Authority and knowing that it works closely with Bexar County. In fact, in the San Antonio as well, a big part of its budget actually comes from intergovernment monies to develop and do big projects. If there's an issue there that comes up, I will certainly speak up. Again, that none of my family or family members, it's a large family. I'm Hispanic from San Antonio, so I got 6 other brothers and sisters flying around. None of us are in the construction trades. So
nice.
I don't think we're going to have a problem there, but something to be worried about.
Yeah, for sure.
Keep an eye on.
Yeah, definitely. Which river is your favorite?
Well, of course, San Antonio. It's the one I've had the most experience with. A lot of fun, raising my son. He's now 35. He's going to get married in another week, so we'll be going up to Denver for that. And the experience we had with him, and of course, the experience when I had with my childhood, I really enjoyed crawdad hunting. So it was either the San Antonio River or the Salado Creek. Just getting a piece of fishing line, a fishing hook, and a couple slices of bologna, and off you went.
There's crawdads on there?
There used to be.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
I think you probably still find them in Salado.
Probably, yeah.
The San Antonio River, that is, I need to look at that, see where we're at with that.
Yeah. How do you plan on, in a situation where there's a corporate pollution in the rivers, do you guys um, you don't manage, right? You don't manage the rivers itself, right? But like, if something were to happen, like a corporate pollution that goes into the rivers, what do you guys have? Do you have any part of that at all, to where you would advise the city about certain things, or?
Wow. That's actually a really good question. Yeah, it really is. You know, this is the issue of overlapping scopes. Whose scope is it? Clean Water Act actually falls under the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. If you're going to release into the San Antonio River, you need to get a permit in order to do that, and go through the permitting process, which is has transparency, public review. So there's not going to be any surprises that someone is releasing into the waterways. You know, we had a situation like that has come up before in our history. Everybody remembers the catfish farm, and they tapped a well into the Edwards Aquifer, and they were spewing an unbelievable amount of water that they were just free flowing through their fisheries there. And the waste that was coming from that, they were just sending it right back into the river. They did zero treatment. And that's what got them in trouble, is they didn't go through the permitting process to make sure that they could eject that water back into the stream. And so the St. Antonio River Authority took them to court. And so that's what I think we'll do going forward. Yeah. If anybody else goes in there and tries to eject and don't have the proper permitting, didn't go through the process, that we would take them to court and shut them down.
Okay. So Sarah can take an entity to court?
Sure, for not following the permitting process.
Okay. I did, because we had asked the previous candidate, he said couldn't. It would be somebody else, but you can advise. But I don't know. I have no idea. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, that's the only example that we know.
Because I know, like with like Kilbasa, where they had the pollution into the river, not a few years ago. You know, I didn't know.
Sausage, huh?
Yeah, they had a big, pollution thing that they started getting into the rivers, and I didn't know if that had anything to do with Sarah's purview, that you guys could, would have done anything in those situations like that.
There's room to get in and have standing. Mm-hmm. The St. Antonio River Authority stepped up to the plate and said they were going to take the charge there, and then they took the lead with that one.
Okay,
but that really gets us to water and water use. Texas, we're in a sad state of affairs with our creeks and streams. You go back in our history, I want to say, going back, the natives that were here in Texas before the Spanish came through, but the Spanish wrote about what they were experiencing when they came through, and riding their horses through waist-high grasses, coming across these natural flowing streams, clear water, the abundance of wildlife and fish, the pristine quality of the water. That's all gone. We're not. We don't have a free-flowing spring in Texas now. And so, at some point, that this is not under Sarah's preview, but we need to have a rational discussion of how we're going to treat water going into the future. Water is going to become a much bigger issue as we go forward.
Yeah, you take it for granted. Drinking water right now, and I'm like, man, I'm thinking. I was like, yeah, you take it for granted. You know what I mean?
That's always going to be there.
Yeah,
and it's going to be pure and clean, and of course, we have the best tasting water because we go through limestone filtration, and the minerals that limestone adds to it really gives it its taste and flavor. And you notice it when you drink water from other parts of the country. And living in Virginia, we were drinking river water, and it has an earthier taste to it. Yeah.
Did you ever drink Manguera water?
From a hose?
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. That's probably before I learned about PVC. Probably wouldn't do it again. But yeah, I used to drink water all the time.
I would still do it. I was just for nostalgia references. As far as well, you already told me about your thoughts on people getting excited for the election, but what are some key takeaways from your campaign itself from your run? Like, what are some things that you want people to know about your campaign?
Oh, for my campaign, yeah. I know that from my experience. I think I have the right experience to participate in the board and provided guidance, and we'll sound the alarm if need be. If I feel that there's an issue that's not being addressed, I will do that. I will take it up and be very outspoken about it. But the other is what I'm really looking to see is the continuation of the enjoyment of the river that I had as a kid growing up. Be able to go out and experience it, to be able to embrace nature, take that in, be able to recreate, fish, and enjoy the water, and of course support the growth that's occurring around San Antonio. That we can do the mission of the San Antonio River Authority to mitigate flood. Along with the needs for recreation, along with the needs of commercialization, and definitely supporting our ecosystem. We can do that all in a balance. It's not easy. Yeah, it never is going to be easy. There's going to be always trade-offs, but that's where I'm looking to continue on. I think with the Westside Creek Restoration Project, that's actually got a 75-year lifespan. I think before 75 years, probably within 20 to 30 years, we'll get to see the effects of all the plantings and the trees, the shrubs that are going to go along our Westside Creeks. That it is going to change the character. It's going to allow neighborhoods to reconnect with our natural resources, and that we're providing the recreational use, meaning that we're providing trails that are going to allow you to connect and be able to, wherever you're at, travel down one of our trailways, get all the way to San Antonio River, and take you all the way down to the Mission Reach, and back up to Salado. And so we're going to provide all that connection. I think it's going to be really unique. That's where I envision. It's something that you see up in the Northeast, something that they're working really hard to connect people back with the environment. And of course, that will address a lot of our health issues as well, the more active we have folks being. And the other, it follows in hand in glove with what's going on in Texas, despite what's going on in Austin. We have one of the largest eco restoration projects going on in the coast, bringing back wetlands. The number of bird species that are coming back now that they've started with the eco reconstruction is amazing. That Texas will become once again, a wonderful recreation state.
Yeah,
something we haven't been for a while.
Yeah, for sure. And you see that with Austin. Austin's people constantly out there running and using the trails, and it's a lot. It's a difference between them and us, but
it is. I was just up there. My sister-in-law lives there in Austin. She's in downtown, and you can walk 2 blocks away. You're on kind of a main thoroughfare. Lots of restaurants, but so many people out and about walking, getting. It used to be you would get. I was a paper boy here for the San Antonio Light. You would see people come out to greet you to get their newspaper and with a cup of coffee in their hand, go back indoors. But they'll go walk a block or two, get that cup of coffee, sit down, have a conversation, and walk back home. They are a heck of a lot more active, and all the bicycles that are there. It really is wonderful.
Yeah, I just came back from New York last month, and I was like, wow, it's so different. I was like, wow, the transportation, the people walking, I was like, wow, this is cool, but I don't know. I don't think we can get there without having really good, reliable transportation, like the subway or the buses are great, but they get stuck in traffic, and we have a lot of traffic out there. So
no, you're right. We need rail. It's not in the city charter to have rail here, and I think it's been lost a couple times before. But there's some great ideas being floated around right now. A high-speed rail from Dallas all the way to Monterey. I think that would be a huge boost. I love subways. Washington D.C. had probably one of the nicest subways, It's incredible to pop up from one subway stop to the next, and everyone, you live in neighborhoods there. You name your neighborhood by your subway stop.
Yeah.
And it was so easy to get on and get off. The kids used it to go to practice and to go to school. It was really, really wonderful.
Yeah.
But we're not in that direction. Folks there tended to be, more central focused, coming back towards the inner city, and the need for the transportation there was really apparent, especially for the government being there. You have to move a lot of people quickly. We're not seeing that here. And in fact, what we're seeing is really the hollowing out of our center. And I'm speaking from 1604 in. We're not seeing the redevelopment that should be occurring within our boundaries. Right now, all the growth continues to go northward. I don't know how we're going to be able to sustain that going forward. That we really need to look and see what it is. Government has a role here to play in encouraging growth to come back to our inner cities. We should not let our inner cities die.
Yeah. Well, I think because San Antonio is really pushing to be a renter city, and I think that's what's affecting a lot of it too. A lot of people, they just want to own their own homes, so they'd rather just go out and try to get a home. Whereas you look further in, there's a lot of apartments to rent, and it's just getting worse. But
no, Eric, the point you're missing there is that owning a home is a way to accumulate wealth. Mm-hmm. We bought our first home for $80,000. We sold it for $160,000. It was a way we were able to move into Washington D.C. and buy a house with inside the loop structure there, and it made being able to live there viable. Had we lived outside their beltway, it would have taken us an extra hour to commute back and forth, and it would have made it almost impossible to be able to pick up the kids and get them home. So I think homes are still the way to accumulate wealth. And this gets back to voter suppression. Renters don't have a lot of vote when it comes to property tax relief. Why is your property tax relief going to the landowner? In this case, if they own a rental project, it's usually someone outside of the state that owns that property. That money is going out to them. So we need renters to say they want to see their fair share of taxes returned to them, because we're blessed right now with a surplus budget, I think of $37 billion, which we were hoping a lot of that would come back to our public schools and education system, but it didn't, not yet anyway. Renters contributed a lot of that in taxes that they pay, and with rents going higher, you're paying more into our tax, into our surplus. I think you used to hear the governor criticize inflation, but he quit criticizing inflation because it was racking up the amount of money that was coming into the surplus. And it's like that ended up being a good thing. But renters, you got to start speaking up. You got to engage, start voting, make sure your rights are heard. But still, I think in today's the way for economic prosperity is to still buy real property.
Yeah.
So I think that's where the real urge comes from. Yeah. And I know when we bought our first house, it was through the skin of our teeth. It was a really hard time, and a lot of tears were shed, hoping that we're going to get that loan to get that first house. Boy, but once you get that first loan, get that first house, it just makes everything else so much easier to get that next loan.
Yeah, definitely.
To move up to the next house.
For sure. How can people get a hold of you to help with your campaign or donate or?
I have a file that I was not going to take any more donations than 1,050 for this campaign. I was taking money in to run for city council. Was not all that successful in getting a lot of money. My opponent ended up raking in over $170,000. So it was very hard to compete with someone with that much money. And that was really unprecedented, 170. For a city council race, that should have been, 15 to 30,000, maybe.
Which this
You're
position
buying
only
signs?
pays out 30,000 a year, 40,000 a year.
So it doesn't make any sense
Yeah.
why so much money flowed into that race. But no, I wasn't going to do that for this race.
Okay.
I didn't think it was warranted. This is an at-large position. Actually, for your viewers, know that November 7th, you're going to be voting for 2 at-large members. The ballot is written up pretty funky about that. You know, you don't have to vote, but if you do vote, you can vote for 1, or you can vote for 2.
It's almost like approval style voting, which we should change to, I believe. Approval voting, you could vote for 1, 2, or none candidates, you know, or you can vote for all of them if you want. But
Right. Always
that's not how our ballot system is. But this one will somewhat be like that. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So, what's your favorite music era? Genre?
Oh, wow.
You can have multiples if you want.
You know, not that I didn't grow up with a lot of music. Other than Andy Williams, and so Andy Williams, it's not Christmas until you hear Andy. But I grew up with disco was on the rage, and so I had the polyester shirts and do disco, and glad that fad left. And then it was new wave, and I really liked the new wave. It was a great scene in Austin when that was coming through, and so I think I have a proclivity for new wave music.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What about local food spot, the local small business that you like to frequent to give a shout out to?
All right. Here we go. So Taco Vallarta.
Okay.
It's it's actually outside Loop 410 off of Nacogdoches. For folks that have been in the area, I remember it as a former Jack in the Box. But they have the best breakfast tacos that you can get in the morning. So I've really been enjoying them. In fact, my normal routine is to go do a 5K on the river walk. I usually go to Roosevelt Island and walk down to Confluence, do a couple of loops in the Confluence Park, and then come back and then stop and get a taco.
Nice.
And then come home and pop a Big Red and reset and get ready for the day.
Nice. That's awesome. And for y'all that don't know, because you can't smell it, of course, but it smells so good. I'm like, oh, it smells so good. So feel free again to come on by to Wild Barley, grab something to eat. We'll be back at 1 o'clock or 1:30. I can't remember. And we'll finish out these series. So just stay tuned for more. Keep engaged with your local voting.
November 7th.
Yeah, November 7th.
14 proposition constitutional amendments to the ballot. The League of Women Voters has a nice informative website, tells you pros and cons of both sides. But there's also others that are putting information about the propositions.
Right here.
And especially Prop 9. Vote for our teachers' COLA.
Yeah.
It's time.
We'll be covering those as well. And my plan is to have 2 representatives to come down here, Texas House of Representatives, to come down and give their takes on them, hopefully from somewhat opposing sides, so to say. So we'll try to see if we can get that set up. So just stay tuned for that as well.
Yeah. Mothers Against Greg Abbott actually have a list of the 14 propositions and how they're voting, yes or no, and giving you the rationale of how they're voting.
Oh, okay. And
of course, they're the ones that have the report card. So be sure to check them out.
Yeah, for sure. So so stay engaged. Thank you, Joel, for coming and spending time with us and talking about your campaign and everything. So good luck. And thank you guys for joining. We will see y'all later. We'll see y'all here in a little bit. Take care and have a great day.
Get out, vote.
Oh, wrong one. That's the air horn.
I thought I committed a foul.
Wrong one, too. All right.